That's a flaw.
My name is Jeff. Some of you might have been here before. This is the Larry Edmunds Bookshop. We are a cinema-only specialist store, although we do other events outside of that once in a while. 75th anniversary this year. We are very, very happy to have. Wonderful guests here. And thanks to great guests and great authors like Jill that we get and great events we have, people like you coming in here, we're able to keep on keeping on. So if you're not familiar with our store, you can go on the Facebook page, Larry Edmunds Bookshop. There's an email list if you want to sign up there for all the events coming up. A few things we rent out and whatever. In the next few weeks we have James Franco at the Arrow Sunday night in conversation. Next week we have a night with Stacy Keach in Santa Monica on the west side. We have a night with author Scott Turow getting interviewed by Brian Dennehy coming up. We have a night in here with Michael Michaud and his new with the Sal Mineo book, which is also a new film that James Franco has just produced, and the star of that, who plays Sal, Val Lauren, will be here as well, and Sal and Michael will be signing along with Allison Adams, who is Nick Adams' daughter, and she'll have a book on her dad's friendship with Elvis called The Rebel and the King. Lot more stuff. Just go online and look, and we'll be glad to share it all with you. We thank you all for coming tonight and keeping us going. I want to thank all the lovely ladies for coming tonight. Yeah. Thank you. Our esteemed author who wrangles this all together for me and makes it much easier for me to present this wonderful night tonight with all these great guests, Jill Nelson. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. We, as some of you may know, we did this last year with 10 goddesses in this store. A year ago, coming November, the night previous to that, we did a goddess event with 15 of them at the Hustler store. And I kind of thought a few weeks ago, it might be nice, since the first year anniversary of the book is coming up, to try to, I was coming down to LA, and I asked some of the ladies who lived in the area, starting with Ginger. I have to give Ginger credit, because she was my first goddess to say yes.
Yeah.
If they would be interested in coming out for an intimate gathering with the goddesses at Larry Edmunds Bookstore, and they all were very gracious and said yes, and so here we are tonight. And for people here that are new to this, I co-wrote a book about 5 years ago about the legendary, iconic adult film star John Curtis Holmes. That book led to the Goddesses book because Jennifer, my co-author, and I had spoken to several of the ladies who worked with John, and actually pretty much everybody here at the table had some connection with him. So it was.
Raven worked with John.
Kay didn't.
Said Raven worked with John.
Raven did, but Raven wrote one of the very first scripts for John's movie, The Return of Johnny Wadd, 1986.
Yeah.
Raven being the esteemed screenwriter here at the table.
Yeah.
So I was really curious. I thought, what was it about these ladies who made them want to go into this very subversive industry? Why did they want to get involved in this? What was it that drew them to it? And I wanted to find out about their backgrounds, I wanted to find out about their careers, and I wanted to find out about where they are today. So I decided to write a book about it, and I started with the interview process and transcribed the interviews, and then the book came together in conjunction with, I reviewed on average about 5 films per chapter, which meant I reviewed about 125 movies. So in combination between this and the Holmes book, I reviewed about 400 porn films altogether. My neighbors laugh and say, I tell them that I have the biggest porn collection in the neighborhood, I probably do. Anyway, Bill is going to say a few words tonight too, but I think before Bill says a few words, I wanted to just introduce the ladies first, and I thought, because I never got a chance to do this last year, because it was just bedlam, I wanted to read just a few excerpts from each lady's chapter who's here tonight, quotes by the ladies themselves, just to give some of you who are new to the book samplings of what the book is all about. And so I will first introduce from the end, Miss Georgina Spelvin. Our absolute matriarch. It was amazing interviewing Georgina for the book because she's so funny and wise and witty, and I felt like, wow, I just spent probably almost the best 2 hours of my life on the phone until I interviewed all the others, and I felt that intimacy with each and every one, which I think was very helpful in the book coming together. Raven Touchstone is Raven, I'm thinking, is it over 800 screenplays?
That's it?
Or is it
Over 400.
Over 4, okay.
Over 400.
I figured it was close to 5, but wasn't sure. So anyway, Raven's been very active as a writer and costumer in the industry for a good number of years. I don't think that any introduction needs, but we have the one and only Ginger Lynn.
Wow.
Ginger here tonight is because Ginger, of course, became a star in the 80s, sort of around the dawning of the video age. So we sort of have a couple of generations represented here tonight, which is another reason I'm really glad that she's here. And Ginger, of course, is still doing radio. Ginger, what's the name of the show now, though? That I was on it yesterday, but I know it changed names, right?
It's called YouPorn. It's on Radio Sex, and it's Sirius XM 102.
Right, and it's fabulous. These ladies are so professional. Christy, Canyon, and Ginger Lynn. It was just so wonderful being on the show. And last year I was on too, so it was just wonderful. Next we have Kitten Natividad. Former Kitten, burlesque performer.
No, I still do it.
Yay! And also erotic film star, of course, started with Russ Meyer back in the day, and she's just a sparkling personality. And Kitten, I have to tell you, you've been so supportive of this book. All the ladies down the line, but anytime I say to her, you know, I'm thinking of doing, she's like, I'm in, you know, no problem. I'm be here. So she's just a wonderful personality and such a positive person to be around.
Power pussy.
Yeah. Then we have Rhonda Jo Petty. Rhonda, of course, has a huge still, like just cult following, mainstream adult film following, because she's just had that kind of like edgy character all throughout the films, but such an endearing personality, and has become a wonderful friend since I started this process. In what, Rhonda, you and I first started talking about 2007? Yeah. Rhonda and I have shared a lot on telephone conversations, and I really consider Rhonda to be a very special person in my life. And in the book, of course, too. And next we have Kay Parker. Mystical, wise conduit, and I named her chapter The Conduit because there was no other, you couldn't have called it anything else. When you spend time with Kay, and if you people know Kay, you spend time with Kay, you talk to Kay, she is just such an inspiration and very helpful and wise, and you're just able to transcend your beautiful spirit throughout every conversation, every connection we've had. Kay is also a very wonderful friend. So this is the lineup tonight. If you don't mind, if I bore you for just I would like to read just a couple of quotes from when I did the interviews. I'd like to, their voices come through in these interviews, and I just thought I would share these with you tonight. And I will start with actually Georgina's chapter, which I called The Angel and Miss Spelvin, Miss Georgina Spelvin. Obviously, it's reference to The Devil and Miss Jones, the film that she is probably most known for, which I watched the other night, by the way. I was telling Raven. I watched The Devil and Miss Jones the other day before I came down here, because I'm going to be discussing it in an interview next week that I'm doing. So this is Georgina speaking. It was very much like, let's get together and do a show in Daddy's barn. It had that feel that everybody was working together toward an actual end. The fact that it was a sex film was because that's what it was. That's what they gave him the money to do. If it had been a film about baseball, we'd have been out there playing baseball. It was a film about sex, so we were in the barn doing sex. Still, there was this incredible feeling that I hadn't really experienced since the days of doing summer stock, which was that everybody had a specific role to play, whether it was coiling cable or fixing the casserole or adjusting the lights or picking up the trash and keeping the place clean. We were all together in this remote location somewhere in either New Jersey or New York. Doing the film was an adventure that everyone was equally invested in, and I thoroughly enjoyed that aspect of it. There was a great deal of camaraderie, and it was just a lot of fun. We were laughing and scratching and having a good time. I honestly thought no one would ever know I had done such a scandalous thing as fornicate in front of a camera. I had no idea I would have to create the character of Georgina Spelvin and live with it for 40 years. Later, I had to go before the grand jury and explain that I was not taken across state line for immoral purposes. But I don't know if I was taken across state line. I certainly wasn't taken across state line against my will. And that's Georgina's excerpt. Next, I want to read just a little excerpt from Rhonda's chapter, and I called it Rhonda Jo Petty, Roller Girl, because in my opinion, the Roller Girl character in Boogie Nights was modeled after Rhonda Jo Petty, not Shauna Grant, in my opinion, just because I had seen some films that Rhonda did in the 70s where she was on roller skates and she was like zooming around, and I thought, wow, this is Roller Girl. I watched and thought, this is Roller Girl. So I'm going to read a little excerpt, Rhonda, from your chapter, and it's about your dancing years. At a certain point, you know, you can only make so many films. I was growing tired of making films, and it was just time to go on the road with them and promote them. The last 6 to 8 years before I quit, I was doing performances all over the United States and Canada where the money was good. After you got popular, the nightclubs wanted you to come and be their main attraction, but you had to do a striptease show. It started to be the thing where we go to the strip clubs and we would become headliners. After the show, I would spend 5-10 minutes on the microphone answering questions. It was good money. That was very popular back then, and from what I hear, it is today too. It's just easy, good money, and you're out there promoting your films. I was pulling in $8,000 to $10,000 a week, and then after each show, I do Polaroid photos and sign them. That was another $1,000. $2,000 a week. I did that for 8 years, and then I would shoot a movie here and there. I did make some in between and did some magazine shoots, and I was just all over the place. A lot of us did because the money was difficult to turn down. The shows were a half hour each and ran from noon to midnight. I'd fly into a Holiday Inn, and I did so many of them, it got to the point where I wouldn't know where I was. I would work solid for 2 months. I'd work 6 days a week, 5 shows a day. On Sunday, I'd fly to my next gig. It was very lonely on the road. I had an agent, and he would book the shows for me. This was from the late 70s until the day I quit, which was in 1986. I started in the business in 1974, and I quit the business in 1986, almost at the end. And that's Rhonda Jo Petty. The next excerpt is from Kitten's chapter, and I called it, I thought very appropriately, Sex, Kitten Natividad. And in this excerpt, she's just talking, you were talking, Kitten, to me about your childhood. So this is just a brief excerpt. It was a normal childhood. I think it's important because a lot of people have this impression that women that work in the business have come from these horribly abusive backgrounds, that they don't have the brains or intelligence to be able to make a conscientious decision to get into the industry. Women who are very smart choose to get into this industry. And women who are young choose to get into the industry, but there are also women who, as Georgina, was in your 37 years of age, I believe, when you started in the films. So here goes Kitten's excerpt. It was a normal childhood. My mother started working at the same time my father worked and went to college. I came home from school, did homework, and made the dinner. There were no hobbies. I did like to put on the radio and dance around the house doing housework. My childhood was definitely not the life the kids have today. I was very responsible as a child. I can't say anything terrible about my childhood. I don't feel bad about my childhood because it taught me one thing. I didn't want any children. Because when I grew up, I remember those 2 a.m. feedings. My mother would go to work, so she called on me. I'm the oldest one, to go get the baby and change his diaper, give him his bottle. I thought, is this what I have to look forward to? Not for me. I'm from the era of baby boomers, and we are different from other generations. We started doing things differently, and we behaved differently. As a teenager, I loved the way Bridget Bardot looked. I wish I looked like her, and I love Natalie Wood. Honestly, I get bored talking about the beginnings of my life because it's so long ago and there aren't any big highlights. I had no tits and I was a very skinny girl. I wasn't boy crazy, but I was into being the popular one, the clown. I enjoyed it a lot because I got attention. I fell in love with my first boyfriend, and being from a Catholic family, I had to take my sister along on dates. She's the one who was born after me. She hated going on dates with me. My sister was always a chaperone, and if I went to the drive-in, I had to take the whole family. Occasionally, my boyfriend and I would take cover because it was cold, and we would do heavy petting. I think graduation night was my first time alone with him, and we did it. It was not good because it happened too fast. I actually think he was already shooting before he got it in. It was a disaster. This part I love, but you know what? There was always the next night. It got better and better every time. And the next chapter is from Kay Parker, and again, I mentioned I called it the conduit. And Kay is talking here sort of about what happened during the career when you would run into women or you would do speaking engagements, and how people kind of responded to your films and to you. Kay said, I used to have women come up to me at conventions and say thank you. I'd say, thank you, what did I do? They'd say, because of you, my husband and my sex life is better. To me, that was the best testimony. It was the best thanks and gratitude that I could ever receive. I think the women, I can't speak of the women of today, and it would be unfair of me to do so, but as a group, we were able to meet. It was a transition time from stag movies to video, and during that time, we were able to get in there and make some classic movies with storylines that weren't focused upon shaved genitalia. Pornos weren't really focused on the sex, even though they were sex films. Yes, there certainly was a formula, and we strove to get the formula broken. You can probably talk to a lot of the women of the golden era who will say this. There was a formula, and it was something like 7 sex scenes per movie with 1 girl-girl scene and 1 orgy scene. If the storyline didn't have that formula, it wasn't saleable. We strove to convince the producers that that was not true, and that you could run the storyline throughout the film without compromising anything and have it be very sensual. There didn't have to be an orgy scene, and there didn't necessarily have to be a woman scene. If there was a storyline, if there was a buildup of eroticism, people had a tendency not to fast forward. We tried to convince the producers of that. Ultimately, money wins over, so they got to the point, certainly as the video era came upon us and the video awards began, then they sold out again. Let's just pump as much sex into it as we can. Whoever has the hottest sex is going to sell the video. But this part's important. At the time, there were also several women directors. My own personal logo was, put the heart back into sex. Up until that point, it had been the Raincoat Brigade, it had been stag films primarily, but the advent of video really broke the market open because now women could watch the films in the privacy of their own homes. That was the impetus, I think, for a lot of us to strive to do stories with women characters that were strong and empowered, and I think we were relatively successful until the internet. And that's very important. I would like to read Ginger Lynn. Oh, Ginger, I get to talk about this a little bit. Ginger Lynn's chapter is called Turning the Page, and I'm going to cry. Ginger had told me that she made a film and that she was very proud of, and it was because it was one of the best. Her father told her that it was his favorite performance of hers. And she did it. It was a Metallica song. It wasn't written by Metallica. It was written by Bob Seger. Turn the Page. It's called Turn the Page, right, Ginger? And when Ginger was first approached about doing this, she's like, I don't want to do this. Metallica's going to butcher this thing. I don't want to be associated with it. But then when Ginger met with the director, and he convinced her of how sensitive it was going to be, and I don't know if any of you have seen it, but you should go onto YouTube and watch Ginger's Turn the Page performance in this song, Turn the Page. It is very sensitive, and it's hard to watch. because there are some very moving parts in there, but Ginger does an amazing job in this performance, especially the talking pieces part where she's talking in between. And Ginger told me after that people got confused thinking that it was Ginger's story and not the character's story. She's so good that people thought, oh, she's talking about her own life. And didn't they start sending you money and sending you?
I thought I looked at my car and I was, a hooker out of the back of my car.
So this is anyway, that's why I called the chapter that, but this is Ginger's talking about when she was a young teenage girl. In school, I had sex for the first time at 13. I lost my virginity to my puppy love. He was 15 and I had a crush on him at the park since I was probably 5. We were together throughout my entire high school years. He walked me to every single class, every single day. We were going to get married. I'd been with other men after we broke up. I was by no means a virgin. I don't know if it goes back to my great-grandfather and that I thought porn was similar to hookers. At that point, I did feel that way. I think that a lot of people did. Porn was not popular. It was very taboo and not part of the norm. It was underground and you didn't watch it. If you did, you didn't talk about it. When my agent asked me to do a film, I guess mortified would be the best word to describe how I felt. Not because of the act, but because he thought that I was that kind of girl. I said no, I wouldn't even think of it. One day, there was a beautiful woman with red shoulder-length hair in his office wearing a long white gown and a cigarette holder and a script. She was articulate and intelligent, and I asked her, "You're not a porn star, are you?" I had my own stereotypes and my own preconceived notions of what that girl was, yet looking at this woman helped me to make my decision. I'd seen photographs of other women, but I'd never had the opportunity to meet one of them. When I decided to make films after speaking to this woman, I walked back into Jim's office and I said, okay, I'll do it. But I want $1,000 a scene, I want script approval, and I want cast approval. Jim was on the floor rolling around laughing and said, "You've got to be kidding me." It wasn't that I was full of myself or had a big ego. It was just that this is how I wanted to do it. When I believe in something, I stick to my guns and I stand my ground. I believed in myself, and that's what I thought it was worth. I didn't know this girl from Adam, but at the same time, if I was going to do it, I was going to be a different caliber. And that's Ginger Lynn. Raven Touchstone. I named it Innocent Taboo after one of Raven's films. And this little section is called So Much Beauty, this little subtitle, because when I was interviewing with Raven, she was telling me what had inspired her to become a photographer. And it was this scene that we talked about, and that really touched me. I thought, that is really something, and I have to say, Raven is a phenomenal photographer. Several of her pictures appear throughout her chapter. They're beautiful, they're stunning. So for that alone, it's worth the book. But anyway, I'm going to read just this little segment here. And I have to say, she's talking about Ginger here. So this section, So Much Beauty. Here's Raven. I was in porn for many years and saw so much beauty. I could not put it into words. It was actually in 1992 that I decided I needed to get some of what I saw on film. That was when I went to school to study photography. It was precipitated a few years before by a scene we were shooting for Ginger and Spice, 1986, in a big fancy bathtub in a large home. Ginger Lynn was in the bathroom naked. She had this pale, beautiful skin with blue eyes and blonde hair. Her hair was tied up on the top of her head in a little ribbon. She asked for a glass of wine, so somebody brought her a glass of wine. I was in there because I was running dialogue with her. She was in a bubble bath with her script in hand, and in comes Barbara Dare, who was in the same scene with her. She has this beautiful olive skin and dark hair, in absolute contrast to Ginger. Her hair was also tied up in a little colored ribbon on top of her head. Here you had these two beautiful girls, both naked with gorgeous bodies, and Barbara said, "Ginger, can I get in with you and run lines with you?" Ginger said, "Sure." Somebody brought Barbara a glass of wine, and she sat at the other end of the tub. These two young, fabulous women are in a bubble bath with a script in one hand, a glass of wine in the other, their hair tied up on top of their heads. I looked at that and I said to myself, I would never be able to find the words to really convey how beautiful this is. I need to go study photography, and that's what sent me to school. And that's Raven Touchstone. The book is was so much. Our interviews would last probably about 90, well, I would say between 90 minutes and 3 hours when we did the interviews for the book. And it was an awful lot of transcribing, but worth it. I kind of had to lock myself in a room for 3.5 years when I wasn't at work to get this done. But like I say, I'm very, very happy that I did. So we have the ladies here tonight. I think what we're going to do is Bill's going to say a few words because Bill
never
is
says.
here. No, Bill would like to. But Bill, of course, being the adult film historian and mentor. Bill was very helpful to me, as was Bob Chin and Kenji, and I hope other people, yeah, those 3 men who are here tonight, very integral to helping this book happen for advice or, you know, ideas, suggestions. Bob contributed some impressions of the ladies that he had during, I guess Bob's outside somewhere, I don't know where he disappeared to. But anyway, I think after that, we can do a little bit of a Q&A if you like. We do have cake. And we have some water, we have some wine, and then we can, you can pick up copies of the book if you'd like, and the girls, you can chat with them and they will sign for you. So there you have it. I'll turn it over to you.
When I was told about this reunion, I didn't know how to really write about it so I could publicize the store. But then the most opportunistic thing happened. A show came on television called Masters of Sex. I hope you're watching it, because without the people here and the rest of the people who literally gave their lives to this business, that show wouldn't exist. I could go on and babble like, you know, I always do, but listening to this, all I can say is that I'm probably the luckiest man in the world, because I've been here the whole 40 some odd years. You know, and the older you get, you'll find out, and I think Georgina will attest to this, because a lot of these kids aren't as old, and I'm now 70, the more you cry. You become the baby you were. Without any provocation, I'll break out in tears. And what she's done is she's humanitized sexuality. Masters of Sex has humanitized sexuality. You must see it, because it wouldn't exist without those ladies laying their asses on the line. So stand up to them, people. Come on, give us that. Well, we have a special guest, very special to me, because he has been able to create what I call the Smithsonian Institute of Sexuality. His name is Ashley West, and he has this thing called the Rialto Report, the latest one being Eric Edwards' interview, which I just bawled my eyes out. I don't know how he does it, but it's as close to perfection as he can. And you certainly should come up here and say a few words, and I hope all of you, at one time or another, become involved with him. He's doing what I would love to have done, but I think there's a big problem with me because I talk too goddamn much. He listens, and by listening, he becomes a great interviewer. And I have a friend in the audience now who is going to write the book about me, finally, called Playpen of the Damned. Because to me, I call everybody kid. And you're all overage juvenile delinquents, and the most important letter in your life is R-E-B, or your letters are R-E-B-E-L. I came from juvenile hall into an overage version of it, and I adopted the children. And I worked with some of them, and work is a very strange thing to say when you're having sex. I never understood why I call it work. In some cases, I was so intimidated by one of them, I wouldn't work with her because she was the grande dame at that point, and I couldn't do that. I did work with some of them. I could tell the great story of Rhonda and her bubble gum, sucking my dick, and then all of a sudden when she's done, she's chewing the bubble gum again. And she says to me, I didn't want to waste a good piece of gum. So, but I've never understood any of that. And what I would just, if I ever tried to interview anybody, I would talk too much because I like talking about myself. But Ashley West listens. And if you listen to his show, he brings an era alive, particularly the East Coast. I was on the West Coast. I was breaking the law up at 6912 Hollywood Boulevard every day. I was told I could go to jail. I said, good, let him come and get me. Lloyd Martin, miserable human being, none of you ever got to meet, would come in on Fridays and say, we're going to put you in jail. I said, well, Lloyd, what if we pull out a shotgun and blew you away when you came to get us? He said, then we'd go somewhere else. But you people hide behind the First Amendment and you hide behind the American flag. And then I said, what about snuff movies? He said, there aren't any. I said, then why do you tell the lie? He said, to make the world think bad of you. That's what we were up against. That's what Bob Shin was up against. We had to look over our show. It's amazing he could direct a movie looking over his shoulder the whole time. In fact, luckily, he sent me upstairs. He didn't have to watch me do the scene. He said, go upstairs and you can direct yourself. Holmes said that he directed himself, and Shin said that's a bunch of crap. Without Shin, there would have been Holmes, I believe. And Shin should take stand up. Come on,
Hey, Bob.
Same room with these people. And without them, we don't exist. Without the history, people are jacking off to these people right now. Think about that. Most people get yawned to over their lives. These people get jacked off to. All right, next one. Come on up, Ashley. Come up, talk to us.
Actually, that'd be nice.
No, I'm really not worthy to say anything in this sort of company. The only thing I will say is, you probably recognize from my accent I'm English, which means I'm very repressed when it comes to sex. And therefore, maybe I can see even more the extent to which people put themselves on the line when these people do what they have done in life. And I'm talking about from a legal point of view, from a personal point of view, from a relationship point of view. I'm in awe of the people up here and some of the people in the audience, because what I've just tried to do is step back and just let them tell their story, just as Jill has done, because what they've done is truly significant, I believe, from a social history point of view in this country, and I think that's testament to their modesty. But when we speak to them, they often don't realize just what they've achieved. And I really just want to thank you for everything and all the risks you've taken, which, you know, it's in a different era. It was really significant what you've done, and so thank you. It's wonderful.
RialtoReport.com. Go to it.
I made him bring flyers.
I hope so.
Oh, good, that's, yeah,
It's
great.
beyond enriching.
Yeah.
To listen to the kids, and he finds some of them that I thought were long gone. If a person manages to escape into the anonymity they're seeking, I'll not go pursue them. But if I know where they are, I have Legends of Erotica, and what I've done now is I've revamped an organization called Protecting Adult Welfare, the PAW Foundation.
Yeah.
It's based on taking care of the kids who took care of us, literally, and now it's dedicated to really 1970 to 1985. After that, not to fuck them, which probably I have, but in those cases, it's better. Those kids are a different generation, the generation that made us. You know, half of you probably don't even realize until 1988 we were illegal. We broke the law. Now, most of you probably had no idea. Boogie Nights had no idea. It was a rotten film, but these people put, again, they put their lives on the line to entertain. And we live in a very strange society. None of you, hopefully, are guilty of this. But this society jacks off to us with its left hand and then denies us with its right. It's a society of hypocrites. I hope none of you, when you're 100 yards away from here, deny you were here tonight, because then you'd be betraying us. But without you, they don't exist. And without them, your fantasies don't exist. It's a symbiotic relationship. Congratulations to every side of this table. Woo.
I was just thinking, maybe people might have some questions for some of the ladies at the table tonight. I don't know if anyone has any questions, would like to.
Well, I have a celebrity, one more person I'd like to introduce. He's very shy. He's one of the founders of the XRCO. He sort of disappeared for a while. Diamond Jim Dobbs, or Diamond Jim Dawson. We used to write for Velvet, and he was here during the golden era. So he can ask, or you can ask him questions. And next year, the 30th anniversary of the XRCO, he'll be put in the XRCO's Hall of Fame because he's the missing member of the 5 that founded it. That's pretty good. The XRCO was a critics organization because the other organizations are a little bit, they bought their awards. Dare I say they were corrupt. But in a business predicated on screwing, you're going to get fucked. Want to say something? But Okay, it's the women's night. Let's ask them
Yeah.
a question.
What's your page of the book?
I'm on page 38. No.
You've only got 900 and...
I want to say, I went back about 5 years ago and watched The Devil in Miss Jones, and that film stands up so well, and I thought Georgina Spelvin was really a great actress. And the film, I mean, it was one of those sort of underground New York films of the time, and stands up with all of them. So,
Well, Jerry Damiano is the one to thank for that, and
Oh,
I'm
yes.
sure he's observing this right at the moment, and he'll be happy to hear it.
Ask questions. I always find that for some reason you suddenly become intimidated if you have to raise your hand. So don't even raise your hand. Just shoot out a question so you won't be embarrassed. Come on, somebody ask if we can hide behind the counter and ask.
How does your history impact you today?
How's your history of
Rhonda, how about, let's hear from Rhonda here. I'm gonna put you on the hot seat.
Yeah.
Rhonda knows I'll do that.
Oh, gosh. Well, after I left the business, I got married a couple years later. And I had kids, and now I'm getting divorced. So that was, 26 years ago. So I got very, my kids found out when they were young teenagers, because other people found out. It's how it impacted my life. And my kids were always pretty good about it. In fact, at that point in time, when they were in high school, it was like the era of porn star was like a neat thing. Everybody wanted to be a porn star. Back when I did it, we were all, not so much, but when we were doing it, I mean, we were considered prostitutes, and we hid a lot. And I lived a lot in dressing rooms, airplanes, hotels. I did a lot of hiding. But you know what? I've been okay with it. And I kind of ran my house. You know, I had 4 kids and a big horse ranch, and I'm getting divorced now, but I'm getting too old for the horses anyway. My kids are getting older. But, you know, I kind of ran a home where if somebody couldn't accept me for what I did, I just could not have that in my home. You know, and a lot of friends we had did accept me. And I was always a pretty good judge of character. You know, and if you didn't like it, I'm sorry. I had to watch when I went to baseball games, though, and this and that, you know, because people would maybe notice and,
Only noticed because they'd seen your films.
Oh, well, yeah. And I would say that too. I'd say, well, if they know who I am, obviously they're doing something in the bedroom, so. Who's that? Yeah. Yeah, but no, I've had a really good life. I've had a really good life.
How about you, Kay? If I can, be nice to hear your impressions of that, because we had quite a good conversation today earlier.
Yeah. Well, I've always been somewhat of a dichotomy because my life in film was very separate from my private life. And I didn't actually hang out with other porn stars. I made a film, came home, and worked as a waitress a lot of that time. So it wasn't about the money for me, it was something else, which at the time I didn't understand. It was only in retrospect that I found out what it was, and I felt that I was divinely guided. I don't know how else to put it except to say that. And now, these years since, or hence, with the internet and the amazing receptivity that I still get from men across the world, I came to understand that I always look up to the sky and say, "Ooh, this is a setup," you know, because I'm able to communicate with men across the world, and I've always striven to put heart into sex. That was my logo back in the day, and the last 30 years I've worked as a spiritual counselor. So I'm still doing it, you know, and vicariously through my interaction with my fans across the world. And it amazes me. I mean, some of the things that you said tonight, I don't even think along those terms. It was just a piece of my life that I was guided to do. And I have absolutely no regrets. And it helped me to recognize who I was as a spiritual, sexual being. People are still amazed people say, well, how did you make the transition from that to spirituality? And it's like there's no separation except in the mind of the thinker, you know, although there was a separation in my mind, obviously, so I needed that journey. So the journey was very fruitful for me, and it remains so. I'm still learning about my sexuality even today. Yes, I'm still learning. I mean, it's never ending, and still putting all the pieces together. But I do find it very interesting that there is still in the minds of so many people across the planet this separation between sexuality and spirituality. And it's like, what? You know, it's like we are sexual beings, period. And sexual, sensual beings. And it's how we use it, it's how we relate to it. And I often say this because in my work on a daily basis with people who may still harbor a lot of shame in their lives, that shame is the greatest blight on our planet, the greatest virus on our planet, because shame renders us unworthy of being loved. And ultimately what we're all about is being loved. It's all about love. There is no greater power in the universe than love. That's my message across the board. Don't we all want love? We all do want love. Yeah. Trust me. That's what I continue to share with people through the work that I do today. So, yeah.
How about you, Kitten? Would you like to share too?
Well, let's see. I wanted to be in power, and I knew that one way to get men was to take my clothes off. And I just loved performing. I started off as a go-go dancer, and I did very well. I came to Hollywood and started doing all that. Then I won the Miss Universe contest. But still, I wanted to do what porn stars did, with fuck in front of the camera. So I came late in my life to do that because by that time I was divorced and all the men that used to control me were not around, so I was free to do that. But at the time that I was free to do that, I was really fucked up along on drugs and men and all that. Yes. But somehow I'm over that. I'm clean and sober, and I own homes and apartment buildings. I got my act together, and I don't drink anymore either.
Yeah.
I'm still in the business, though. I still strip, and I still do whatever I let it go.
You look great.
Whoa.
I was able to talk to Ms. Parker and Ms. Petty earlier, and they asked you what your favorite films were, and as it's kind of a shorthand way to get to know what people's values are, and you had suggested or offered that your favorite film was Field of Dreams. One of them. And that resonates with being divinely inspired, and you had mentioned that Apocalypto is about people facing their fears, and characteristically that makes sense to that theory. So what I wanted to do, if it's all right with the remaining panelists, I just was curious, what is your sort of all-time favorite?
Fantasia.
Fantasia.
I have to watch it once a year.
Yeah.
Why is that one of your favorite? Why is that your favorite?
It has everything. I mean, it's got nymphs and satyrs alive, oh, romping across, beautiful. I mean, it's got scary mountains. It's got Mickey Mouse. I could do without that section, but the rest of it. And it's gorgeous. It was the first film that really brought art and made it move all over the place. For me. I still do.
Hang a quick interpretation on that. If you consider that juxtaposing with The Devil and Miss Jones and where that was historically, it makes perfect sense that there's everything in it, and it's the first film that, so there's a parallel, I would submit. So it's just a thought.
You certainly submit. I mean, that's what you're here for.
Little fun psychology.
Penny, Raven, how about your favorite film?
favorite film?
Yeah.
Of
Or one of them.
everything, or that I wrote.
Well, either.
Well, one of my favorite, well, you know what, when I first got into the business, Scotty Fox, who brought me into the business, gave me 3 movies to watch. One was Devil and Miss Jones, one was Story of Joanna, and one was Night Hunger. I was floored. I had never seen a porn film in my life, and contemplating writing something, I thought it was all just little people in hotel rooms with guys keeping their socks on and stuff like that. I had no idea that there were this quality of talent in the industry, and I was knocked out. This woman, when I saw her performance in Devil and Miss Jones, I couldn't believe the depth and the richness, the quality, and I loved that movie, and I loved your performance. You were brilliant. And when I watched Story of Joanna, I could not believe the incredibly intense, delicious, perverse quality of Jamie Gillan. Woo! I was knocked out by that. I could not believe it. And then in Night Hunger, it had Eric Edwards, it had Sharon Kane doing a beautiful performance, and Sharon Mitchell. Those 3 movies are forever locked in my brain. They were so artfully done. I will never, ever forget in Story of Joanna, the extreme close-ups Damiano used, where the body almost became hills and mountains, and I mean, I was knocked out by the beauty of it. So, of course, I came into the business and I was writing all these little cutesy-pootsy movies, which was okay. It was fine in the beginning. And then as we, you know, in the video age, as we got more mature and we grew up in that world, we started doing bigger and better movies. And I think for me, out of my stuff, gosh, I can't even pick one. I can't. There were a lot that I loved. And I would like to say this while I'm saying something, that when I first got into this business, the first 3 movies I wrote, the first one was called Intimate Couples. And the only big thing about it was that John Holmes was line producer. And Scotty Fox brought John Holmes to my house to go over the script. Now, I knew who he was, but I did not know as well as my roommate knew who he was. And I was in meeting with Scotty and John, and we're going through the script line by line. My roommate is on the telephone with her friends saying, John Holmes is in my house! John Holmes is in my house! The biggest cock in the world is sitting on my couch! That was later on I realized that was quite an interesting experience. The next movie I wrote was Just Another Pretty Face for Tracy Lord. The 3rd movie I wrote was simply called Ginger. And it was Ginger's first movie for Vivid. And I had the great fortune of writing that whole series. And I cannot believe that here we are, 27 years later, sitting side by side, still having the same love for each other that we had back then. You know, it's just an amazing life. We could never have figured back then that we'd be here today doing this. And having had the great, rich history we've had in this business. That's just amazing.
Here's a cue for you.
Well, I'm going to go with I can't pick one favorite, but I'm going to go to one of my, as Penny calls it, Hotsy Totsy, or Raven. Gentlemen Prefer Ginger was one of my all-time favorite films, and I think it's because Penny and I had become such good friends at that point. When I started with Vivid, I wanted, Penny and I did the first film together, and every film that we did, we sat down, and I was able to say, I want to live out this fantasy, and I want to do this, and I want to do that. So Penny and I had all of these wonderful days and days of living out. She would write my fantasies and I would be able to live them out. And in Gentlemen Prefer Ginger, I have 9 different scenes. And I was going through a point in my life where I couldn't find one man that had all the qualities, so we made up 9 of them. And it was a lot of fun. It was one of my favorite films. But I also have to go to The Pleasure Hunt. Fabulous movie. I was really lucky. I got into the industry when the first, I'm going to say 30-something films of my 69 in the initial part of my career, those initial films were all shot on film. So I was able to experience what these ladies did, the road that they paved for me. I got to walk in and do that. And when I was handed a script, it was 100 and some odd pages. And it would say sex scene. There would be dialogue, 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 sex scene. And if I have to pick one favorite movie of all time, and it was listening to the other ladies share, I'm probably going to say my very first adult movie, which was Surrender in Paradise. And for me, it was a surrender in a million different ways. I surrendered my innocence. I became a woman in that movie. I learned to talk in that movie. I was put in my very first scene. It was a sex scene. Walked in, 6 girls. Jerry Butler nailed it. No problem. I had to talk. We had to shut down the production that day after about 6 hours. I couldn't look up and say, "Leave me alone." I could not deliver the dialogue. So there were all of these hurdles and things that I learned about myself. I grew. It was my first waterfall. It was my second time on an airplane. And I got to meet all of these beautiful people who were there doing whatever they wanted with each other for no other reason than just to have a good time. There wasn't the fame and the fortune that these ladies had at the time that they were in it, which wasn't long before me, but it was in the movie theaters, and the video age hadn't come around. So I walked in and I got to make movies at a time and make a movie that changed the way a lot of people looked at films. There was a point in time when if you watched a movie, you were the raincoat crowd. Nobody watched it with their wives or with their partners. It was really an underground thing, and I feel really lucky to have worked with, well, I haven't worked with any of the ladies here. I haven't had sex with anybody here, and this is, I think it's the first time ever in a room full of porn stars and people. I've had sex with one person in this room, and it's really, hi honey. And now I'm just babbling and talking in circles. I'm just a really, really, really lucky lady. I loved all of my films, and there's something special about each and every one of them. But if you're going to make me choose, I'm going to go with Surrender in Paradise.
Which are review for the book.
Yes.
I think the mistake right now in mainstream cinema and adult cinema is that they all look like music videos. There's no build-up before any scene. So that's why I stopped going, watching these movies. Because look at the James Bond, there are like 15 explosions, but they all look the same. Similarly, in adult, there's so much noise, and there's no build-up, no striptease. So there's no, you get tired watching, number one. Number two, if you want to see a good adult movie, go back and watch Women in Love, and with Larry Edmunds, I think. And the other one, Aphrodisia's Diary, with Arlene Manhattan. Very well.
Did you say Lauren Dominique?
Yes, she
Yeah.
has it.
Yes.
Because when
Lauren Dominique, she was actually, I featured her in Candida Royale's chapter just because she was Candida's best friend, and she was a good actress, and she died very tragically, alcohol-related death in 88 or 86. But yeah, she's a very beautiful young woman. Bob worked with Lauren a few times, Hard Soap, and
I was introduced to adult films within a few hours of arriving at JFK in 1976. I came from Amsterdam, and it was like 2 a.m. in the morning. It was snowing, and I had no family here. So I said, where I go? I took the F train to Church Avenue, Quarterly Road station in Brooklyn, and got up. There's a theater called Church, and I went inside, and they were playing Super Vixen and Up. Very spiritual. Like she said, it's spiritual. It's very spiritual. I met Raven Touchstone. I met her, and she said, come to California. And now, many years later, because I'm Indonesian, I went there to learn Indonesian cultural arts. So many years later, I came, and my first job was with Raven, 2 years. It's very strange. Then I worked as Taylor Wayne, digital Caballero, digital playground, and now I just teach fencing here.
All the ladies, of course. Do you guys ever get asked to do any more movies these days? Now, are you guys still in the game? Anybody still doing any more movies?
I get asked, but
No? You do get asked though, that's what I'm asking.
yeah.
Cool. For everybody, is it approach?
I've had offers recently, but it's not the world that I grew up in. It's not the same adult film industry. And as this gentleman was saying a moment ago, I need the lead up. I need the passion. I need what gets me there. I don't know if other women, but I'm going to assume that most of us, it takes me, 10, 15 minutes to get there. And if you're just shoving it down my throat right away, it's fun and it's entertaining, but I still, if I were, which I don't, I would never make a comeback. It's just not the industry. And I'm going to romanticize where I was and remember it in the wonderful, beautiful way that I do.
That's last thing. If you want to learn the core of film, the adult or mainstream, go back and study Joseph von Sternberg. He stars right here at Cahuenga and Hollywood Boulevard. He will tell you the background, how to put the shapes, and you have to have the movies visual. So that's all.
Thank you.
Yes.
If any of you know what's happened with some of the biggest adult male stars from the time.
They're all dying off.
Yeah,
there's one. Which ones?
I don't know, just in general.
Well, I'll give you this tragic statistic. 4 out of the 5 original Hall of Famers in the XRCO have passed away. Reams, Gillis, Leslie, and Holmes. The only remaining one eloquently interviewed on Rialto Report, the most recent chapter of it, Eric Edwards. If you want to find out where he is, where his mind is, and how a beautiful person, and that's the thing, these are people, these are human beings. They got your fantasies and all of that, they were able to do it, but these are human beings, and you listen to what Eric has to say, and you will cry. And you're also paying reverence to people who are living legends. Think about that. This is 40 years of history at this table. We're only 41, 42 years old as a mainstream acceptable sociological phenomenon, thanks to Georgina with the landmark Devil Miss Jones and Deep Throat, Green Door. It's all the same era, 1972, 73. And we haven't backed down. The reason we can't make quality movies now, there is, and I hate money, but there is not enough money to make something good because people want it cranked out like sausages. And I don't like sausage. It usually upsets my stomach.
Should we mention that Harry has just finished his book? And
Yes.
will be published?
Yes.
Howie, wonderful.
Yeah, Howie
Reading
Gordon, known in the industry as Richard Pacheco, recently had his book published by my publisher, Bear Manor Media. It's called Hindsight. This has been
Brilliant.
30 years in the making.
Yeah.
And he sent me some excerpts from it, and I laughed. Like, I thought, this is he's very witty, very smart guy, but it's also
Poignant.
Yeah, very poignant and
honest. And he's a brilliant writer. He is a brilliant writer.
It's probably, I'm sure it's available online now, so people should take a look and pick up a copy of Hindsight. It's just recently.
He's going to be having a book signing and launch here in LA. I'm not sure exactly when, but if you Google him,
right,
you can find out about it.
He was here last year actually when we had the
He
Goddesses
sent me
here.
working chapters
Has
all
he?
along through the
Yeah.
process, and I was just floored.
Yeah, me too.
Van has great skill.
Yeah.
2 more of the Golden Goddesses have books on the way. Seika's is out now, Platinum Princess, and
Yes.
Serena's is on the way.
And can I mention, can I plug
Yes,
my
and
book?
please do.
It's been out for 10 years. I don't have hard copies anymore, but on my website, ktaylorparker.com, there's a text version, which is updated from the book, actually, and an audio version with me reading it. So that might be the way to do it, and soon to be on Kindle.
Did you do the narration on the audio yourself?
Yes,
Yeah,
I did.
good for you.
That was fun.
Yeah,
So did
I
you,
did mine.
Georgina.
It's not out yet, but it was wonderful getting up at 4 o'clock every morning so there was no traffic noise.
I should mention that, well, if we're going to plug books, Jennifer and I, my co-author on John Holmes' A Life Measured in Inches, we did the audio as well. It was nightmarish. Just because she came to my house, we recorded it. I had to go back to work after a few days, and you know, when the book is 600 pages long and you make a mistake, you gotta go back to the beginning, and it's not out yet either, but I think it is on its way. It was just a monster project doing it, so I can't imagine, Georgina and Kay, what you guys did. But although maybe it would be easier working on your own and not having to, because we were alternating.
I had a friend with a recording studio.
Yeah.
And I did it in the studio.
That was, yes.
I should mention that my book, my book is called Taboo, Sacred, Don't Touch. Taboo, of course, which is perhaps my best known movie, and the reason I called it Sacred, Don't Touch is because taboo is a Polynesian word that means sacred, don't touch. And it's an autobiographical journey spanning 6,000 years. So when I decided to tell my story, I had to tell the whole story of all of my past lives also, and how it all leads to this point right here and now. I couldn't do it any other way. I had to do it that way, and people kept warning me not to do it, that people will be turned off by the whole idea of past lives, and it's like, I don't care. This is my truth, my reality, that there's a much bigger story here, much longer journey leading to here and now. So just wanted to let everybody know that, so that you're not surprised.
Yes. Yes.
Jill?
Yes, Jill.
Bill?
Yep.
Your favorite movies?
Well, now, he asked the question of your favorite mainstream movie, which is amusing because a lot of the adult
I don't
films
watch
are
that venue.
self-contained, but and they went into their own favorite movies. Since Georgina answered Fantasia, Raven, what is your favorite movie, mainstream movie?
Mainstream. Oh my goodness gracious. I have no idea.
They always say, what's the movie you take to an island with you? But I've always said, if you have a movie on an island, how the hell do you watch it? You got no electricity. Okay, Ginger, what's your favorite mainstream movie of all time?
Arsenic and Old Lace.
Oh,
nice.
Great choice.
What did she say?
Arsenic and Old Lace.
Arsenic and Old
Cary
Lace.
Grant.
Yeah, that was a wonderful movie.
Yes.
Well, let's get the ladies done first before we answer. Kitten,
What's that?
your favorite mainstream movie of all time?
Oh, it depends how I'm feeling that day.
Well, it has to be the one spontaneous.
At this moment. One you love.
Oh, God. Splendor in the Grass.
Oh, which one?
Splendor in the Grass.
Oh.
Well, Wood and dating, epic, 1920s.
Yeah, I wanted to fuck him so bad.
Apparently everybody did. I'm sure there's some smiling sheep out there. Rhonda?
You mentioned Apocalypto earlier.
And
Any
Kay?
other topic?
Well, I just saw one of my favorite movies, The Field of Dreams, just because it
That
has
is
to do with,
beautiful. Field of Dreams
it
is
was
the ultimate
dedicated to
family
our
film.
fathers at
The
the
Lost
end.
Parent.
I love that movie too.
That is probably the easiest movie to watch if you want to cry.
Yeah.
You know, yes, good.
I can tell you the movie in my entire life that made the greatest impact on me.
Planet of the Apes.
And it was something
You realize she was one of the monkeys.
It was something I saw when I was very, very young.
That helps.
And it was A Tree Grows in Brooklyn.
I was gonna say that, because that's, I talked about that in your introduction.
And that,
Yeah.
because in the movie, of course, I read the book too, and I loved the book. But the little girl Francie had an alcoholic father who was very, very magical in his own way. And I lived through that myself. I had an alcoholic father who was very magical in his way. And I mean, I cried through the whole movie. I must use 4 boxes of peanuts. So that movie had the greatest impact on me. I think was it my favorite. I've loved many, many, many movies.
Well,
Of current movies, I would vote for Castaway.
Let's finish this one.
Both venues.
Me, my favorite.
Please.
I can't, I have to think of the dog.
Adult.
Put on the spot here. A couple of films in mainstream I like The Heart is a Lonely Hunter, and I love Shawshank Redemption. Those are 2 of my favorites. Adults?
Come on now.
One of my, well, I recently just rewatched The Devil and Miss Jones, and I have to say that
Okay.
Georgina's performance, I watched it when I was reviewing it for the book, but seeing it again, because I'm going to be interviewed about it in the near future, I was just astounded. And actually, just before I watched it, I watched, oh my gosh, do you remember I told you, Georgina, on the phone, the other movie, and I said Ruth Gordon.
Yeah. Harold and Maude.
Harold and Maude. I had watched Harold and Maude just before I watched Devil.
Similar.
And I said, Georgina could have played that role that Ruth Gordon played and nailed it.
My feelings exactly.
What's that?
I said my sentiments exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, mine is a tie from my mainstream film is Wild Bunch of High Noon, without a doubt. I knew as a child, and ironically I was going for the bad guys, and Wild Bunch, which fulfilled my own destiny because I used to create playground games which were elaborate, and when you got killed, you didn't get to count to 10. And what Peckinpah does in the Wild Bunch is he makes dying painful. And it's very important, but when the line, why not, and they walk to their death, that is the ultimate choice. My favorite X-rated film of all time, and of course I can use one of mine, but it isn't. It's the one that I think passes Misty Beethoven. It's a movie called Take Off.
Yes.
And I think that Take Off, Georgina again, Eric, it's a movie, it's basically the portrait of Dorian Gray done as an X-rated film. And if you don't cry at the end of that movie, you have no soul. Because what Armin Weston did is he took eras, one after another, and had Wade Nichols pass through them. It's a masterpiece. The real world couldn't make a movie that good. I don't care how hard it tried. It's just, I think it's the best. Holiday Inn, I used to fight a lot because everybody goes to Misty Beethoven. But, you know, Misty Beethoven, which is Pygmalion, is the Gone with the Wind or the Citizen Kane of X. But Take Off has more soul. Take Off will hurt you. And a movie that hurts you, like Field of Dreams, is what it's all about. Because, and now I'll tell you about a movie that just came out that will transcend a lot of movies that you see in your entire life. It's called Gravity. If you haven't seen Gravity, go and see it. And allow the movie, which it did to me, and I've already seen it twice, to drag you into the screen and kick you around. I love film. It's hard to believe that I was once introverted and used to hide out in theaters. But, yeah, when I got a byline, I stopped being introverted. Now, we have other questions.
Yes, questions.
Come back here.
Yes, Kitten, what is the burlesque event that you're
It's called the Hollywood Burlesque Festival, December 6th to the 9th, at the Hayward Theater on Wall Street. It's a big event. Lots of stuff.
More questions?
Well, what we can do, well, I have cake to serve tonight, and I'd like everybody to have some. There's a little wine that Jeff's got there, so maybe people can mingle. They can pick up a copy of the book if they like, and talk to the ladies here and ask them. Yes.
Just make a comment. I've been privileged to meet a few of the women, and friends. Listening carefully to everything they've been saying, I heard 1.5 no's, no likes. This is a group of very articulate and literate women who have made an incredible impact on my life. And I'd like to know, how do you feel about the way women are
people perceive them?
Are perceived. How do you feel you've changed the equation? Because you have. No question about it. But your thoughts about the business today and the long-term impact of the work that was done when you were working.
One of the things that I heard quite often, I host a radio show, and a lot of people that call in, women will tell me that when they watched adult films and they knew it was a Ginger Lynn movie, that there were things that they weren't able to tell their husbands that it was okay to do before. I want to have it in the butt. And it's not always easy to do that, and allow yourself to tell your partner what you want to do. And because I kind of looked like the girl next door, if you watched one of my films, I was a girl next door that was nasty. You know, I did pretty much anything and everything that I wanted to do. It felt good and I wanted to. And because I enjoyed it, a lot of my people, my fans and friends that I've spoken to about it have said that I made it okay to do some of the things that you would think were taboo or naughty, and those for me are the best things of all. So I adore
Okay, so,
Where, Jeff, should we serve the food?
We're gonna serve right over here at the
Okay.
table.
So everybody needs to have a look at this cake because it is designed
We can sign over here.
as the cover of the book. Yeah, we need to go before you go